There it is. There it is. Hey, good morning, everybody, and welcome to Morning Motivations. I got a little treat for you. I got my grandson right here. Say hi, everybody. Say hi, Bennett. I just had the joy of feeding him some of his breakfast with his mother. He's 7 months old now, and he is crawling a little bit, and he's saying, Mama, Mama. He's my namesake. He's Bennett Daniel. Yes, he is. So he's part of my story. So today, as you've joined us for Morning Motivations, I am going to give Bennett Daniel to his mom, and she's going to put him to bed. So welcome, everybody. This is our weekly broadcast, our 9 o'clock Thursday morning weekly broadcast of Morning Motivations. I want to say good morning to Eddie Othon and Elizabeth down in Hebronville. Elizabeth, I will be in Laredo and then over in Hebronville the weekend of July 28th through July 30th. I'll be hanging out with Pastor Kelvin and getting a chance to be there. So make sure you come hug my neck. Eddie, you and I are going to be together tomorrow, which is pretty awesome. We'll be traveling down to Santa Clara, Cuba, and working with the Cuban people there, Pastor Yoel and Heidi, and all the Jorges that are there, which is great. Got Jorge, a brother, Jorge, a son. It's really, really cool. So today I want to talk about the concept of owning your own story. It's very powerful to connect to who you are. Very powerful to not spend your thought time with regrets, not spend your thought time with bitterness of any kind. And so the way that you do that is that you kind of celebrate every struggle, every trial as a learning experience. And it's so important that you do that. And the important part about that is not to become self-centered by telling your story, but really by going through your story, giving thanks for the tough days in your life, making notes, either in a journal or mental notes at the very least, of what you learned through that, how you grew through those different things, and then you tell your story, decisions that you made, people that helped you, because a lot of times we focus on people that hurt us or betrayed us or neglected us, and we don't really spend the time to begin to build building blocks in our lives by going through our lives and owning our own story. You know, my story starts in Minnesota. I was born in a hospital in St. Paul, where my grandfather worked as a painter. He used to paint all through the hospital. And my mom was 19 when I was born. A lot of the story and why I was born when she was so young, she got married at 18. But a lot of the story was through her pain because she had a baby when she was 17 that she had to give up. We didn't meet Mary until much later till I was in my late 50s. And so it's always interesting to see how, you know, your parents affect you, how everything works together. But when you think about it and you don't place negative judgments on things, then that becomes part of your beautiful story that you can tell to everybody. So my mom, having given up that child, she missed that child, and it was part of the way culture was back there in the 50s. That baby was born in 1957, and they would, in the Catholic community, they would take the young girls and they would kind of cloister them away, hide them away, and then they would, you know, they'd deliver the babies, and then within a few hours, they would take that baby and give it to a foster family. And my sister Mary, my half-sister Mary, she then, went on to have a good life. And then we got to meet her when she was about 57 or 58 years old. And I was a little younger, clearly. And then from there, my mom really wanted to have a baby. So she got married in 1958 and then had me almost 1 year later in 1959. And then another baby in 1960, another baby in 1962. And you see how this struggle became creative for her. She had beautiful children, not to say I was a beautiful child, but to say she had good children. She raised her kids. She used that tough, adverse experience to create and to grow. She didn't shut down. Rather, she longed to give even more life, which is very, very beautiful. And she ended up having 5 kids with my dad. And then she and my dad split at one point, and then they had another child when my mom was 44, 25 years my junior, younger than me. And so that's all part of my story, being the oldest in the house I grew up in, not knowing that I had an older sister, and being constantly told, you have to be a good example. And she used to enforce things by saying, Dan, you got to keep she called me Danny, and she'd say, you have to keep the house in order. And if I come home and something's out of order and somebody needs to be punished, it'll be you. So I learned responsibility from a young age. I learned that I was always in the position of being a good example. And it created a lot of leadership skills in me, created a lot of responsibility, accountability, the fact that everything I did was being, checked up on. And to me, that became, rather than that being annoying, or rather than that being a negative, that became something that I lived with and lived by all the time. And it helped me to do my homework. It helped me to train. It helped me to train athletically. It helped me to work on whatever skill or talent that I wanted to develop, knowing that it was going to go on display. And so that's a big part of my story. And just as I'm telling my story this morning, I'm owning my story. And from there, that brought me to the place knowing that I was used to being held accountable, used to being checked up on, having my work checked, having to perform, having to execute on instructions, all of that stuff that put me into a position where I wasn't afraid to do that. I wasn't afraid to take a test. I wasn't afraid to sing in front of people or play in front of people or to be judged. I wasn't afraid. So that helped me then to apply. Actually, somebody came. It was really a miracle that the coach from Yale University came and helped me to apply for the college because my parents were young. Nobody had ever gone to college. They didn't know how to mentor me. They didn't know how to prepare me for college. So college wasn't something we discussed at home. It was something that was discussed at school by other kids, and I would hear about it. And of course, I knew about playing football in college or playing sports in college. So I was aware that there was something out there, but I didn't know the actual steps to take to get ready. I didn't know what an advanced placement class was. I really didn't know what SATs or ACTs were, which are the achievement tests. I didn't know. And so that became something that, rather than being mad about the fact that I wasn't trained, I turned it around, basically saying, even though I didn't know, even though I'm not mad at my parents for this, but something good's going to happen in spite of my naivete, in spite of my ignorance, in spite of my, just incredible, I just was unaware of things. And then I turned that around for a positive, rather than obsessing over all the bad things that could happen because I didn't know things. I started to realize that not knowing things didn't disqualify me from moving ahead. And so that helped me at Yale. I got to Yale, and my grandparents were saying to me things like, what are you going there for? You don't have anybody to impress. We love you. We want you to stay home and be with us. My one grandfather said, what is Yale? Is that a Swedish jail? He didn't even know what it was. Are you going to jail, Dan? Are you going to? And he was teasing because he knew now what it was. But then when I went, I didn't have a lot of money. My parents were naive. They gave me $500, thought it was enough. And then God worked it out. So I learned all these things. I learned that out of a terrible experience that my mom had, and I didn't know about that until I was in my 50s, but you could, looking back on it, I could see her urgency. I could see her beautiful 18-year-old desire to give life, to be a mom, to do all that. And then, my desires, that I could feel that passion. I could feel that in myself. I didn't want to live a life without passion. I wanted to do everything with passion. So you turn your story into a testimony. You turn your story into a powerful thing. And one of the things I'm going to do at our next Deeper Life conference, and I invite all of you to come and join us, is I'm going to pay for the development of anybody who wants it. If you want to come to our Deeper Life conference, I will help you to tell your story, and it'll be put into a book, and then you can put pictures in it. I have a member of our group that has a website that creates templates, so chapter by chapter, picture by picture. You can go from your childhood through your teen years, 20s, 30s, all the way up to however old you are now, and tell your story. And the purpose of it is not to just leave a legacy or to have a memorial, but the purpose of it also is to begin to love your story and live your story and really understand that you learned through your story. A lot of times when I work with people on a regular basis and I get with them, it takes me a lot to get them to feel like they are important or they are impactful or that they have a purpose. And this exercise of owning your story, this exercise of living your life through your imagination and going back and turning every negative into a learning experience is absolutely powerful. I guarantee you, if you do it and you really work through it, I guarantee you that you will benefit from it. I guarantee you that it'll give you more confidence. It'll give you the ability to really go back and forth in a conversation. And the byproduct of it is you'll learn to value other people too. Because if you're not really valuing yourself, then it's really hard to value someone else. It's hard to give them the kind of respect, the kind of honor, the kind of room in a conversation, the kind of room in a relationship for them to fully blossom and bloom, because you haven't allowed yourself to own your story. You haven't allowed yourself to live your story. And you haven't allowed your experiences, your education, your feelings about things, your thoughts about things, your choices to truly motivate you forward. I hope that's helped you this morning. This is Morning Motivations with Dan Stratton. I'm Dan Stratton. I'm in New York City a lot, but I'm traveling. This weekend, I'm going to Cuba. I'm going to teach them to own their story. Just got back from the prisons, teaching them to own their story. I will be working with people. And if you want this help, you want your book written, all you got to do is let me know and we'll make that happen for you. God bless you. Have an awesome day. Let me close with this. Scripture teaches us very clearly that we overcome by what Jesus did for us, the blood of the Lamb, and the word of our testimony. You want to overcome, you want to start having victory in your life, you want to start moving things forward on a regular basis, own your story. Own your story. Get your journal out, start writing about experiences you had, and start turning the negatives into positives. Ask yourself, what did I learn here? And then celebrate what you learned. God bless you. Have a great day.